Evening. Welcome to the Selectmen's meeting of October 2nd. Our normal meetings are held on Mondays, but this coming Monday on October the 6th, we're doing something that we have not done, at least in my memory. The three boards of Selectmen of Plainville, Rentham, and Norfolk are going to be meeting at the offices of the Board of Selectmen in Plainville. And we've also invited the school committees of the three towns to that meeting. And the objective is to explore ways of how the three towns could work together to look at opportunities to share services and potentially look at our costs and expenses. And so because we had a conflict with the date, we've moved that our meeting to today on October 2nd. So to my right is Rob Garrity, a member of the board. To my left, Jim Lehan, clerk of the board. To his left, our executive assistant, Marion Harrington, and to her left, our town administrator, Jack Hathaway. Jack, do you want to
be happy to
share the agenda?
Meeting of October 2nd, 2008. Called the meeting to order at 7:30 p.m. 6:30 p.m. Review of the warrant articles, town administrator report, including action items, old business update, bi-weekly calendar, and new business. And we have acceptance of minutes. We also are having a joint meeting with the planning board at 8 o'clock.
We're going to go to their meeting? Okay. So hopefully we'll be done with our meeting.
I hope
and
so.
then go there. Otherwise, we'll come back over here. So you want to walk us through the warrant?
We have,
Everybody's
Marion has been assembling the warrant articles. And this is a draft that has been presented to the advisory board at this point for a meeting last week. I'm not sure how many do we end up with, 16? You want me to just start at the top and walk our way through? The first one is a boilerplate to transfer money. The second one would be a boiler.
Sorry, do we have an expectation that there might be something there?
I expect there will. We've had, I know at least for the public school, there's been discussion of the issue of trying to balance their budget. We talked about this a couple of months ago when they had the $125,000 deficit, or $100 some odd thousand deficit. They tried to balance that.
This is the $40,000 item.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They've talked about they're going to make a request to have the money from our additional state aid posted to their budget.
Okay.
I'm not aware of any other significant transfers at this time. Although I did have some discussions with the advisory board about some capital items. They were going through the outstanding capital items as well as some capital items that they've been made aware of since the last meeting, and they've asked me to look at could we fund those out of operating budgets rather than through capital. So I'm going to look at that for their October 14th meeting.
Jack, was there any announcement today out of the governor on his 9C cuts?
I did look. I got a brief chance to look at the MMA website, and they said that all the local aid got paid. The first payment got paid 100%.
Okay.
I don't know if there was more to that. My understanding was there was no cut beyond that, but I didn't get usually I'll get a letter from Representative Ross when kind of pieces fall out.
I don't know what the extent of what he's proposing, but what I heard driving back, that they're trying to see, they want to minimize doing local aid cuts, but he has proposed sweeping cuts in his budget and reaching out to other groups also, and he is proposing a 7% cut
Is that
fairly
mitigation-
significant.
Is that mitigation money in hand?
No, it doesn't get paid until December.
Because that's in an operating line item, which could be subject to a 9C cut.
Oh,
It's an operating, yeah, from the Department of Corrections.
you mean the
Yeah.
additional?
I think all of it, actually. Both ends of it.
The second, well, yeah, both parts of the 192,000 are, so
You mean
the
the 280,000?
380,000, yeah, are all part of the Department of Corrections operating budget.
But we've gotten any installments of that as yet?
No, we get those paid in, it's either late November or December.
Oh,
Sobering thought going into town meeting.
okay. I'll take care of one of the other articles over here very quickly then. All right.
The second item is unpaid bills. The school is working on a settlement for professional services that may require an item
what?
there. For professional services, a special education consultant that they've been negotiating. This is an outstanding, something that goes back 2 to 3 years.
How much is that?
I don't know. They are in negotiations right now, so
Oh,
I
I see.
can't tell you that.
Yep,
Third one down is committee reports.
yep.
Fourth one down is the capital budget.
It's tied to the 189,000. The additional, right?
Yep. There was discussion at the, I think maybe we should have that discussion with the advisory board meeting, advisory board again on the 14th. But there's definitely there were some people that were saying at that meeting that we should fund some things now, and there was definitely a mindset that we should hold off on capital articles until the spring. So we need to come to a decision on
Has
whether
the
or not.
capital budget committee met?
They haven't, but I think Arlie was going to get them together, but
'Cause we
They've
shouldn't
also-
bypass, neither the advisory board or us should bypass the capital outlay committee. Make sure we hear from them.
It's their recommendation.
Right.
the fifth one down is, this is the revised article related to
Mhm.
from the library trustees. This is for the compensation for somebody who has reached the 12th step.
This is the retention adjustment? Is that what it's being called now?
No.
No.
Retention investment?
I'm
Oh,
just looking at the
retention, yeah, yeah,
last-
yeah.
Oh.
That's right, that is what it is.
And actually, this is the original article here on the front page, and then on the back page is the one that the library trustees drafted, which they would like to substitute for this one here.
Oh, I
But they
see.
did that after
Yeah.
you guys closed the warrant. So if you want to accept that change, right? Am I saying that with the latest information?
So why don't we just go through it and then, so that's one thing that we'll need to just
Okay.
vote on.
The next article is a $510 request from the town clerk for special elections for the town meeting.
So, I mean, we don't want to get to on all of this now, but the first one and the second one and this one, you'll tell us from where the funds are going to come from, right?
Yep.
We don't have to do that now, so.
On the bottom of the page, this is from the bylaw committee, and this is the article that they put together, which talks about charging for rental of rooms, any of the municipal buildings to use the space.
Have you had any discussion with them, with the bylaw
I
committee?
attended their last meeting, and then I also attended the advisory board meeting where the advisory board briefly talked about it. They were going to invite the bylaw committee to attend. The last I knew, I think the chairman of the bylaw committee was suggesting that they're going to host a public hearing about this article, and they're asking that anybody that's interested to talk about it, attend
Who's the
their
chair?
public hearing. Janice Nelson.
So did they, when you attended, they talked about some of these, the reasoning or the rationale why certain buildings are included, certain things are not, and I read this very carefully, and they've defined some terms, but the terms are not used later on in the text, and I hate to sound like an attorney, but maybe I've just misunderstood and not read it carefully. Do you have some background on this? We don't have to discuss it now.
I don't know, I guess I didn't catch the definitions. I can see where municipal buildings and in town are used. I don't know about,
Well, they've defined
User.
something called user, and I'm trying to figure out what do they mean by, where are they referring to users? And
And also,
didn't understand
the
some of these.
definition of in town,
Yeah,
in principal place of business with physical address, neither private residences or PO box address. That would mean if, like, you know, unless the Lions soccer has a building, they don't count, doesn't it? Because I think they use a PO box, but they operate sort of out of, they meet in, you know, locations. They don't have a physical place of business.
There are a number of organizations that fit that definition.
Yeah, and
I'm
then,
not quite sure, Jim, there were a lot of things. I don't know how we want, we're just going through the warrant. We can come back and discuss some of our thoughts on
They're
this.
still in the process of changing wording in this article, which we always do, with some of these aren't written the way that.
Yeah.
So there is gonna probably be a change to some of this before.
Yeah, but I think in principle, the substantive thoughts behind this, I'm sure they don't plan to change, like, we can come back, why do they decide that school buildings are excluded? Why do they decide that, the definition of an in-town is the way it is?
I mean, I think,
How do they,
I can answer some of those if you want to
Huh?
talk about it. I can answer some of those now if you want to talk about it now. I mean, I think they ignored.
So why don't we just go through everything and then we can come
Well,
back?
if you don't mind, if you have some rationale to that question, I'd like to.
Okay, sure.
yeah,
Whichever you want.
Sure.
I mean, I know that, and Roy's on the committee too, so.
What's that?
You can certainly chime in too.
Good, then you can answer.
They did not address the schools because the schools already have a system set up for
For
renting.
fees?
Yeah. And then the discussion about in-town, I know the discussion that I heard was about, they were concerned that there were groups that have offices outside of, even though they may meet in Norfolk, they have offices that are outside of Norfolk. So that's why they're put the requirement in to have an office.
Give me an example of that.
The only one that I know of is the Providence Baptist Church.
But how do you define, okay, all right, but like, for example, I just know casually because at one time, there's a group of, I just don't mean any disrespect, but the senior citizens who get together and they, from, every so many months, they play bridge. They're a Norfolk group. They don't have any physical place of residence or whatever, and sometimes it's organized by some Norfolk residents, but I know that sometimes they'll have people who are like non-Norfolk residents who will join them to finish their, their grouping of people. It's just a social, and it's a community place. I mean, they used to do this in the old library, because I used to go there. I mean, I haven't ever gone to the new one when they get together, but, how, would they end up paying a fee? Because they're not I don't know these definitions. So I kept looking at user, but there's no use of the word user in the fee schedule.
or for instance, are we going to require people to submit 501c3 certificates or EINs,
And who's going to
Application.
administer this?
My comments about this were all of the enforcement. I mean, there's no,
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think, they were looking to generate revenue, and they were doing this based on a request from their appointing authority, the moderator, to put this bylaw together. My comments about this were all of what you're talking about, if you're trying to generate revenue, I'm concerned that
Cost will exceed.
cost of trying to monitor this and police it is going to exceed what revenue you're going to generate. And I also, another personal bias, is I think that we may be able to tweak our current procedures or policies now, but I don't think we necessarily need a bylaw for that. And I think all the community groups, we should not be charging them to use all these rooms that we all paid
We
taxes.
paid for.
Well, I agree. I mean, I just think, first of all, nonprofits, in-town nonprofits and organizations, and even more so if I were a Norfolk, attract people to Norfolk, even for-profit in-town groups. Let's say there's a businessmen's association, Main Street, who are trying to help promote more commercial activity. Why, when we built the library and the build rooms, we said it is for community use. So I don't know whether in principle I would agree with,
Any fees.
yeah,
Yeah.
but,
Well, there's a quite a substantial list of organizations, not one that obviously jumps to my head is Norfolk Together,
well, yeah.
which is
Doing
has
good
no
work.
has no office, home addresses.
That's true. That's
Made up.
true.
It is made up of all Norfolk residents, but they meet in the library and the senior center because they have no other place to meet.
Right.
What about the NCL
And
might meet?
CL.
And
I mean, there are a
NCL
number
does
of
so much
organizations.
fundraising. Oh, Cub Scouts.
This is a good debate for town meeting, but that's
Well, it's a debate for town meeting if we accept this warrant article. It's up to the Board of Selectmen to accept it or not.
well, that's true. We do have that flexibility, but that's a different discussion to
Yeah.
me because
Not today, but I'm just saying, I'm just pointing that out in the,
Is there a time in a future date where we're going to vote to accept warrant articles?
It has to be soon because this warrant needs to go to print October 20th, which is your next meeting.
Yeah.
We're very late getting this going this year.
well, I understand. That was the reason why we wanted to, and I wanted you to be, I'm so glad you're attending this meeting, but I just think
well,
we need to talk a little bit more about this.
but we don't
And then,
have until October 20th to make that decision, do we?
well, as written, unless you tell me that,
It would be a
There's a
whole lot better
substantial
if you were gonna make a dramatic cut. Marion, we should really be going to the printer on the 20th. But we just talked about it upstairs. We may have a final tweak and send it on the 21st, but I don't think we want to delete something that's 3 pages long.
I understand and somewhat agree with the idea that we want to create revenues and
Yeah.
fees for utilization of facilities. And,
Yeah.
the school's been doing it for a long time. A lot of towns do this. I understand that. I struggle with the definitions.
Yeah.
And imposing fees on organizations that are founded purely to the benefit of our own citizens.
Yeah.
I agree
that-
with
that-
you
that-
completely.
that-
On both points, I agree with you.
So, as written, I'm not in favor
Yeah.
of this. Conceptually, I
Yeah.
support what they're trying to do, but,
See, I go a bit farther than you.
okay,
That conceptually, I have a difficulty with this.
okay.
It
And I can
doesn't.
understand that.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
doesn't jive with my experience in other communities. I run a nonprofit. We do this kind of stuff. Maybe I have to recuse myself.
It was in Norfolk, so don't worry about it.
That's right. We don't come here. And I
You're an
haven't.
out-of-town group.
That's right. I haven't had the experience where we've had to pay. Lexington Depot, great historic building. You have to pay for that. It's a wonderful building, but the library we don't pay for. Other places.
If I invite the MMA to have a regional thing,
Yeah.
I'm trying to get them to come, would we, the Board of Selectmen, have to come up with some kind of funds transferred? I just don't understand this.
Well, that's I think in the regular course of business and the users
It's
piece.
not municipal.
Except
Hmm?
it does say that there's an out.
Where?
That it doesn't.
It's not municipal.
Right in the purpose, up
So
on the
if you're
top
doing it
line.
for MMA, that's municipal.
Excluding municipal.
But
boards
that's
or
not
committees.
town business. That's state business or a group, it's an association of, as written, as Jim says, I have a lot of issues with this. So if you tell me, just to answer your question, if there is going to be some cleanup or write-up, then we should discuss that on the 20th and maybe have it go on the 21st, we should give a fair chance if they want to, see it in here. generally loath to, exercise the right of removing something from the warrant,
I could live with something that said, for example, out-of-town organizations. I mean, I belong to
Out
a
of town
number.
for profit.
Well, even not profit to some degree. For example, I belong to a couple of organizations that are not-for-profit, but we don't generate any revenue, and we don't give anything back, and we rent classrooms in a public school system for our meetings. We pay a fee for that, and I think that's acceptable. That's okay, even though we're not-for-profit. But we're not giving to the community. I mean, it's a different thing. So there's a part of this that I kind of agree with, but I have a hard time
What
even
about out of town?
rationalizing having the Lions or Norfolk
Right.
Together or any of these organizations paying to
Or
meet.
even a church.
Well,
Yeah.
I happen to agree with you on that.
If an out-of-town group is providing services, even if it's out-of-town to Norfolk residents, why shouldn't they use facilities right here? Because it's a convenience to our residents to come to a local place without having to drive far away.
Well, but I don't know how you define that. This is where Jack's point is, how do you get into the enforcement? I mean,
I
somebody.
know, see, those are all
It
the,
gets ludicrous to try and figure out, well, do you do anything for the community? Do you not do anything? Well, how do you define that?
and who would do this? Would you be?
Oh, it wouldn't be me.
Huh?
It's not me.
Here's the problem, the senior center, town hall, public library have different groups, and then the treasurer collector has to collect the funds, administer this. I mean, if this generated $1 million of revenue, I would keep quiet right away. If this generated $500,000 of revenue, but if you tell me this generates less revenue than the parking permits in the parking lot of Old Town Hall, then I would say, you know something? We need to think about this.
I think they said it was $10,000 to $11,000 of revenue, that if you figured out how much the library was used last year, that's how much revenue they could generate.
$10,000? So all this, we'll have a debate about $10,000?
I don't even think it would be $10,000.
Well, you also have to think, would those groups
They wouldn't have
pay
gone.
the
They
fee?
wouldn't pay.
Right.
They wouldn't pay.
Right.
They just wouldn't do it. Now, the library trustees have taken a vote on this, haven't they? Or they've expressed an opinion at an advisory board meeting?
One of the library trustees attended the advisory board meeting, it was Harvey, and expressed his distaste for the article.
Mm-hmm.
It's a nice way to put it.
Well, anyway, so I don't know what,
I'm loath to take away options from people. Town meeting is a wonderful exercise in direct participatory democracy. So I would let it go if we can get language that makes sense, trusting that people will make a fair decision.
I thought they had, I knew they made some changes. I didn't realize they were still making, I actually don't want to have people making any more changes, because the advisory board meeting is meeting on the 14th and the 16th to go through the articles.
I'm in agreement with Rob. I think that, I'd like to see this modified, but
Yeah.
I would be hard-pressed to say to a committee that's charged by the moderator to bring forward recommendations that we wouldn't support bringing it to the public. I mean, we may stand up and argue against it, but that's the
Yeah, no, I
that's-
agree- I
that's the
agree over
process.
there.
So be it. Yeah. So
But-
I would not want to not include this.
okay, yeah, so don't get distracted by that comment that I made. Let's just focus on the content of this. You disagree with the content as written,
I am not comfortable with the language that's here,
Yeah.
correct. I am not.
and neither are you,
I know.
and neither am I. But you know what, if this sentence is correct, if Norfolk Together is an organization of at least 95% of Norfolk residents, then it would not fall
Correct.
in this
But
category.
my question is, how are you going to know that?
No, you won't know that unless you go through.
I mean,
a
now,
lot-
Norfolk Together would be an example of, yes,
Yeah.
they are all Norfolk residents.
so
but
is
how
Lions
would-
and all
how-
that.
Yeah, but how would you know that?
You would have to have some proof and record keeping and administration, and that's a law just.
Bring your license, check in. I mean, it,
It took me 3 weeks to be able to go to the transfer station when I moved here. So I don't know if we can spend a
but
lot
I'm
of
going to
time
Jack's point.
checking
You
people's
don't want to
residencies.
create a bylaw that you can't enforce.
Yeah.
And
Well,
anyway,
we put it
it'll be a
forward.
good debate.
Yeah, and they have the opportunity to fix their language in the interim and then come to town meeting floor with different language and do it as a
Here-
substitute motion.
Here's what I would suggest, since Marion, you are on this bylaw committee and you're representing the selectmen, you should make it clear that, as worded, it's something we disagree with.
Okay.
And I also would suggest very strongly that they should spell out how this is going to be administered. Not just from they've just got a section on fee collection and limitations, but there should be a section of who's responsible for, non-payment tracking and collection, because there are different facilities that are under different groups.
But, Ramesh, am I reading this wrong? They would not be excluded from a fee.
No, I'm just saying, who would administer this bylaw?
The town treasurer, they felt that,
The town treasurer doesn't go around finding out. They just collect it.
but if you don't pay, you don't use the room, is how it's set up. So there isn't the thing about chasing fees later on. You pay before you use the room.
They actually, and I caught the end of that discussion, they had a procedure in here for paying the fees where you would, like, if you were gonna rent the library, you'd be at the library, kind of reserve the room, and they would hold it for you. You would come over, pay the treasurer, have them stamp your receipt, go back to the library, and then you would be officially
You
booked.
would have the room.
So if
We got into a debate because that may not be the most efficient way to do it, so the conversation ended with the policy should be developed between the owner of the room, the library in this case, and the treasurer. Let them work out how the collection gets done.
People of Norfolk are the owner of the room.
I just don't think NCL should be paying $30 for a 2-hour meeting in the library. I just don't
I
think
agree.
they should.
I'm not,
I just don't think they should.
Okay,
And
I
I'm
would
just
take
naming NCL.
I would just take this feedback,
We're meeting on the 14th, so.
the advisory board didn't vote on this, but there was a pretty strong consensus on this as well, that they were not in favor of it.
Okay.
Okay.
Community preservation.
Sorry. We have two community preservation articles, and these are both requests from DPW to do some historical preservation at Pondville Cemetery, and then at, and the second one is for the historic districts. I thought you had the ones with the dollars.
I do, I thought it was in there.
The dollars and
I
euro
have the
dollars.
dollar amounts for those
No,
two.
we got
No, I know,
excess.
I have to put it in.
What are they?
They're upstairs in
Oh,
my,
okay.
but I thought I had
You
took
say, what are they, like, what is the dollar amount?
Yeah, what are the dollar amounts?
I thought it was like 25 and 30,000. I'm not,
First one is 25, second one is 30.
I don't know which is which.
So is the second one, this note, has there been a positive vote of the CPC?
Yeah, there has, because they met and sent, they had 3 articles and they condensed them down to 2. So I
Okay.
think we've got the final articles upstairs.
What kind of work are we talking about at the cemeteries?
Butch did a presentation at the advisory board meeting, and it talks, well, the Main Street one was taking the wall and rebuilding the wall on the corner of Main Street North, the bigger intersection there. Is that north? That's not north, is it? Main and Seekonk?
Seekonk, yeah.
And so, and then rebuilding the wall, and he's got, they've approved it's kind of a formal entrance. But they need to do that because they're gonna correct that intersection in the future as well. It's one of our most dangerous
I didn't
intersections
say
in
anything.
town. And then rebuild a lot of the wall around the cemetery.
Mhm.
And Pondville, I honestly couldn't tell you what, they talked about walls and fences again. Talked about plastic fences, and they said, no, they don't want that. The Historical Commission was involved in the oversight of this as well.
You still be able to sit on the wall on Seekonk as the parade comes by?
I believe you
If
would,
you're
yes.
tall.
I don't want people leaning up against a nice wrought iron fence and knocking it over. Spent $25,000 to build. Doesn't make sense, does it?
No, it doesn't.
Okay.
Okay.
The Economic Development Committee, we've asked George just to research that to see if we can add people at the fall town meeting. My remembrance was that we could not, but George is going to get back to us on that. And then we have the 43D for the B1 district, the Economic Development
Just
Committee.
type twice, is that what it is? There are two articles that look identical to the...
Yeah, there will only be one in there. This is, there's a difference in the table. Either is acceptable.
What is the difference in the table?
Well, for instance, Frank Gross doesn't own that property on Rockwood Road anymore. So they changed the notation to existing residents. Looks like they just cleaned up where they made some mistakes.
Sorry, which one are you looking at?
For instance, the first Rockwood Road property, right here,
That's Frank.
Yeah.
4913, it says Frank Gross.
Oh.
He doesn't own it, so they just fixed that,
Oh,
I think.
okay. And why did they say Article 20 Exhibit A? Is it because they took it from last town meeting's, draft thing?
Yeah.
We should just remove that, because otherwise in the future,
Oh, that wasn't gonna
It's
go in.
article placeholder, right?
Yeah, that was just in here.
It's like
Oh.
XX as in don't know.
oh, it's not 20, it's a...
I was wondering, I was like, where's the 20? Okay, I'm with you.
Oh, sorry, 20, I just saw
Yeah, I
it
did.
says 20, never
My
mind.
Roman numerals are a little rusty. And then there's two planning board articles, and I actually want to talk about that with, three, sorry. I actually want to talk about that with them tonight, because Butch has had posed some questions to them, because we don't have the plans yet. And the procedures that we talked about with the planning board were they needed to get us the plans so we could have present them and have them available for public view.
And doesn't the planning board need to hold a hearing on these?
Selectmen,
Oh, the selectmen do.
because you're the owner of the roads, the keeper of the roads. And then there's a question on Maple Street, whether or not it's really Maple Street. The shade, it's the second one, Maple to Shady Way, because part of that was discontinued, so I know Butch has been talking to Dave Roach about that.
Oh, so there's three. Okay.
The Advisory Board and Bylaw Committee is an article that was put together to change the requirements for mailing out the warrant. Right now, we mail out the warrant either 7 days or 14 days prior to the town meeting, depending if it's a special or a regular. The Advisory Board, what they're looking to do is shorten that requirement and have it be that the requirement is actually to send out their recommendations, and they'll include the warrant with that. But they can't, the problem is, they can't always have it done by the 14th day, so it may be closer to town meeting.
And what about the warrant itself? What about, last time we postponed it because
That's what this is.
that we will just do it, if we can post it, and if people want, we would just give it to them?
No, what it's
Remember
going-
that we were gonna
what
do
this is
electronic
going
and-
to do is take it out of our hands and put it in the advisory board. So instead of a warrant going out, it'll be a recommendation that will include the warrant.
And it,
Because
but
it's double work right now and double mailing.
Right.
it
right.
also takes away the requirement that they have the warrant, the stuff out in a certain time frame.
Right, takes the time frame out.
So they could deliver it to the day before town meeting.
It just says, it just says prior.
I mean, when we have it done, which I still have to have the constable post it by state law, so we can't remove it.
Oh, I see.
So the warrant's gonna be done, it'll still be online.
Is-
If somebody calls and wants a copy, I'll mail it to them.
That's what I was
It's
asking.
still gonna be available within a reasonable amount of time. It's just that the actual mailing out, which you go to the post office after they mail
They
it,
just,
it's
yeah.
a stack like
That's
that.
what we were trying to avoid. So what this says is that the advisory board will mail out the recommendations and the warrant,
Right,
or whatever, they'll get it out in one mailing, and we will still provide the warrant available for posting.
yes.
That's what we wanted to do the last time, and we pushed it off so till they could get their thoughts together. Okay.
There's no state requirement on the advisory board finishing up their recommendations
No.
anytime.
It could be just there on
There's
that,
no-
at that meeting.
There's no state law that you have to mail the warrant at all.
Yeah.
You just have to post it.
So that's what we're doing. We're posting it, and
Oh.
I mean, I personally would rather either send out a postcard or, there's lots of other low-cost automated, the reverse 911, there's all kinds of, we could just say, if you want a warrant, contact us.
you should, that's not a bad idea, Jack. Use reverse 911 to tell people that if you want a warrant, it's available here or it's
Press
posted
1
here.
and we'll automatically track your address.
Does it have that kind of interactivity?
Yeah.
Really? It's neat.
Yeah, oh yeah.
I
That's
hate
a
to
good
bring this up
idea.
in a public
Don't you
meeting.
think?
We got to change the caller
It
ID.
needs to be some form of transition that allows people to
63313,
know that they got to
It
come.
comes off
get it.
as J&J corrugated.
Oh, I think, yeah, the phone number's right, but I don't know why, I'll have to call the phone company,
Yeah,
because the
it's-
label is on there.
Keep getting called by this J&J corrugated guy.
Okay.
Okay.
Right.
I don't think, unfortunately, Ramesh, I don't think the advisory board is in favor of
This article?
No, they like this article, but they still want to have the mailing to every household with the full warrant.
With which we said that they combine it with the recommendations.
Right.
They can. They
So it's an
can-
improvement, it's just not the way
Right.
I would go, but I'm one guy.
Yes.
And then the Norfolk School Committee, we have this on there, but we also, I've had discussions with the advisory board about including this in the
Capital.
capital article. The discussion we had last time, and we're going to talk about more on the 14th, was they actually would like to keep this as a separate article. And as I said, some of the other capital articles that they think we may want to fund, like one of them was the $10,000 for the library sorter that we're already contractually obligated to pay. That's example of one of the articles they want to put into the operating budget. So the discussion on the last advisory board meeting was they want to eliminate the capital, just IP it.
My conversation with Ross a couple of days ago was they want to keep this as a separate article.
Okay. This is the alternative, the way down the bottom of the page is the alternative for the library trustees.
Yeah.
And then George has given us two articles that, these are prior road articles, acceptance articles, but because of recording time frames, he thinks we're going to need to accept again.
Because of recording time frame. What does that mean?
I don't know the story behind the Carlson Circle one, but the one with Mass Ave, we accepted that street last time, but there's a resident on Mass Ave that was not part of the development, and there's still some transfers of easements going on between the developer, the town, and the individual. The three attorneys for those different parties are all still working on getting that done. And so even though we accepted the road before, it was contingent on all the deeds being recorded, and those were not recorded because they couldn't come to a resolution. So we can either try again in November, or we can try again. The resident has already been told that we'll likely probably wait until May.
And then are you working on we have to put an article in for the Highland Lake name dedication?
Yep, Jack and I have talked about it a couple times. So
And
we don't have text apparently.
so,
We'll need to get text.
okay. Who is going to do that? Jack?
I can work on that.
No, I mean, I don't know. You had told the historical commission that you were going to.
Didn't we supposed to ask George Hall about this one?
Yeah, and
I'm missing the humor.
There was something odd going
I'm
on.
trying to point fingers at each other.
Yeah.
I think I'll check with George Hall.
Okay.
As I,
So I remember I thought the chair was going to write that article.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
what I
right.
thought too.
Don't you remember
You gonna
that?
vote that, Jim?
I thought we did.
You're having a senior moment, Jim.
Well, it looks like we'll have some time in between this and the planning board discussion.
So
so
you should be able to whip
we
that out.
can whip that right out.
You are pretty good.
I can
Reach
write
out
these
to that
things.
nonprofit organization.
We'll charge a fee for looking at the nameplate.
So we've decided that the tax title auction thing, we'll put that in the spring. Is that, remember we had put that on our, okay.
I had a question on the compensation piece. So,
what piece?
the compensation
Yeah.
piece.
Bottom article?
Yeah.
Yep.
Can we talk about that for
Sure.
a second? So what we're saying is if you've reached the top scale, the top step on the pay scale, and you're ineligible for further increases step, your elected board, and this only counts for folks who are under elected, who are under elected boards?
These are just the people who are, or I think it said, or department heads, isn't it?
No, elected board or elected committee.
Yeah.
So you would have the authority, according to the way this is drafted, you would have the authority over all the personnel employees other than the library.
Well,
'Cause we're not talking about, obviously, we're not talking about union people, we're just talking about,
and then,
Only management employees this is talking about.
this talks about
It's very
management. folks.
specific.
So, and it would allow us to give a step increase equal to, not more than, the highest step increase of any of the employees in that department?
right.
Yeah,
Okay, under their
direction, yeah.
So it's, we're talking about 2.5%.
Because everyone else, except for the police and firefighters, are on the comp schedule, right? Even though they're union employees,
Now, there's a different comp schedule.
there's nothing with 7% increases in it.
No.
And the advisory board discussed this, no, they've submitted this, right, or whatever, no, they
The
haven't.
advisory board, the library trustees presented this to the advisory board.
And what was
Take
their,
a vote on it. They wanted to talk to the personnel committee was not at the advisory board meeting, so they want to talk to the personnel committee about it.
I see.
Unless something has changed, the personnel committee they were not in support of the original article. And the last message I got from the chair was that they think we can correct this problem the same direction they gave us last year. We can correct this issue through my authority, which I don't believe I have that authority according to the personnel bylaws. The personnel bylaws allow the personnel board to make changes to anybody's compensation outside of the standard procedures. I don't have that authority.
How many employees are still under the personnel board?
About 17
17?
or so?
And how many management employees?
COA director, library director, recreation director, building commissioner, treasurer collector, chief assessor, assistant town accountant, assistant treasurer collector, and assistant town clerk.
9?
9.
All right.
Assistant town clerk is considered management employee?
Yeah, because they're high, that person is higher than a grade
So
8.
this is covering 9 people.
Yes. Only one of which is at step 12 now. There's another one that'll be there next year.
Just, can I get a sense, are you in favor of this article?
I'm in favor of fixing the problem. I've been in favor of fixing the problem for a couple of years. But I think this to me is a stopgap. If it's the only way we can fix the problem short term, but it's a bigger issue to me, which is why I asked the question about the 17 employees. I think we've got a different issue that at some point we've got to deal with.
Now, these employees, when we do a COLA, these employees get the COLA.
Yeah.
We have inequities in our pay systems right
Right.
now, and we don't have equal treatment for all people, the way this currently stands. And the 17 people that are under the personnel board, frankly, in my view, are disadvantaged. And,
I mean, there are union employees that are at their top step. I mean, I know there are some in the DPW, there are certainly some in the police department. I mean,
but they can negotiate that.
Yep.
They have the power to negotiate that. As a body, they have the power to negotiate that.
Yep.
The 17 employees do not.
Right, yep, I agree.
So how do you feel about this?
Well, I was on the personnel board, actually, a number of years ago. And kind of the theory behind the steps is as you grow in experience, you deserve more money. And so there's this kind of philosophical issue that once you've reached the top step, perhaps you've gained as much knowledge as you can, and just COLAs are appropriate after that point. That being said, what ended up happening is every time an employee reached the top step, they'd come into us for reclassification to move them through to a different row. It's a long-winded way of saying I think we need to come up with a solution for employees in top step, particularly because as a town, we value those employees who have longevity. That's a good thing for us.
Yep.
So I actually, I like this rather than just creating a 25, 30-step compensation schedule. I think this makes some sense. And it is discretionary. It's under the discretion of the boards.
I'm very much in favor of this, Jim. I understand what you're saying. We have a bigger problem, but from the standpoint of the way it is phrased, it's a retention thing for basically somebody who's
I'm in favor of it.
yeah, who's capped, and
I'm-
under normal circumstances, in for-profit companies, you would say, well, you've reached the top and that's it. But in this particular example, which is submitted by library trustees, we have significantly altered, and we've been the beneficiary as a town of some of the services of people who fall in this category. So
I'm
very
fully
much
in favor of, I was in favor of the one we
I
had
know.
last time.
Yeah, yeah.
Because I think it's
So
wrong
I
that we
think
put these people in
I'm
the
glad to hear
circumstances.
the board is completely
But
supportive.
I'd like us to, at some point, to look at the broader issue.
Yeah.
Well,
That's the point I was
Yeah,
making.
I know.
and this one's, the moderator wrote this, and he's a creative young man, and he's got a sunset clause at the end of this.
Yeah, I saw that.
So he's forcing us to
Ca-
look at
To
the broader
come up
issue.
with a longer term.
Right.
Okay.
Interesting.
I mean, I've talked to a few other towns, and there's, everybody does a little differently. Some add steps and then drop them in the beginning.
Yeah.
Others do what we have done in the past is award a one-time bonus equivalent to the step increase that they didn't get. Kind of the issue I have with that is it's not a compounding, you
Correct.
lose the compounding effect.
Okay. Is there any other discussion on this? Just one thing occurred to me, when you do talk to the bylaw committee about this article, I'd be curious to know if we've got some data on what some other towns do for fees in municipal building. So I'm sure there is, just so that I know, and, how do they categorize it and things like that. I can, if it's okay with you guys, I can have the pleasure of proposing a sequence, or what do we call it, the ordering of the articles?
I have one open piece of business.
Oh, sure.
I have text
Yeah,
on the Fowles Memorial Park.
yeah.
All right, to see if the town will vote to designate a portion of the property abutting Highland Lake and purchased using community preservation funds as the Fowles Memorial Park. See what George thinks of that. But, so that's your
There you
language for
go.
the last
Great,
page.
fabulous.
You're welcome.
You delivered on
That land
behalf
is
of
under
the
control
chair.
of the selectmen at this
You can give me a copy of that?
What's that?
Can you give this copy?
That land is under the
I think
control
the
of the
answer to that
selectmen
is
at this
yes.
point.
Any other discussion on this?
Nope.
You okay? All right,
Fine.
okay.
I think we need to, well, we can do it Monday. We need to open and close them.
Open and close the
Warrant.
warrant again?
Well, wait till you
Open it
get,
to put
wait
the
till you
numbers
get
on?
the,
What's that?
you have a couple of revisions still to come in
Yeah.
here.
Yeah, you have some of those.
Let's just do it one time.
Yeah, plus you've got those land acceptances thing to just
Okay.
confirm. Okay,
Some action items.
action items?
Please vote to award the salt bid to Eastern Minerals, Inc., Lowell, Mass. at $70.20 a ton. Alternate award will be to Eastern Salt Company of North Chelmsford, Mass. at $75 a ton.
Okay, why don't we just go through, we did a consent
Okay.
thing, so.
Please proclaim October 24th as United Nations Day. A proclamation has been prepared and executed by you. And please approve a request by the Boy Scouts to sell popcorn at the transfer station from 9 o'clock to 3 o'clock on Saturday, October 11th.
I have to ask a question. Is this sanitary? People are going to be throwing their trash away and eating popcorn. I mean, I leave it to adults to figure out how to handle that, but I'm concerned.
I'm thinking it's unpopped popcorn.
It's packaged.
Oh, it's not actual. They're not going to have a little machine there. Oh, well, there you go. That's
It
one.
is, the answer to your question is yes. So do I have a
See,
motion?
I asked the question and was never answered, so
Do I-
I thought you were kidding.
I was serious.
Well, she did answer you, actually.
No,
You
she didn't.
Yeah, she said, I don't eat anyway. Do I have a,
It's getting out of hand.
do I have
Fernridge?
a motion?
So moved.
Just, you know,
The
that's a
second.
planning board, not here.
All those in favor?
Yeah.
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Yeah, this is what happened. This is what you missed. All right.
I was very confused.
I could see that. Old business update?
I don't have any old business for you tonight, other than what we met with, I guess that would be under new business, our meeting from last night.
Yeah. Do you have any old business?
No.
Do you have any?
No.
I just have one. What's the status of the call and wait filings? I don't know what to call it anymore.
We have,
She was going to,
it's filed, now we're just waiting for a court date.
oh, okay.
So,
Where will that be?
you're digging around, you haven't seen a court date yet, have you? I know you, what's that? Halloween, October 31st, court date.
Oh, we have a court date?
How appropriate.
Okay. And the other thing is,
Is that in Dedham?
That isn't Dedham. It's at the same court it was last time. That's my hangout with that courthouse guy.
okay, after the unending number of phone calls you made on my behalf and the phone calls I made to the Walpole Board of Selectmen, have you heard anything back from the chair or the town administrator? Because I'm really getting bugged about this.
We do.
We do. Oh, I
I did
take
hear
back
back
what
from
I said.
Mr. Boynton, and
For the chair, by the way, the board chair, I left all my numbers. The board chair did not contact me. And her number is unlisted. I'd love to live in a town as a Board of Selectmen, unlisted number. So what is,
what she would like to do is meet with the town administrators and one member of the Board of Selectmen.
Yeah.
And she cannot do afternoons or evenings, so there's a 9 o'clock meeting. I believe it's on the 9th of October.
she's actually proposed a date?
Yeah.
I can make it.
Yeah, okay. Can you make it?
No, she only wants one
I
of
know,
us.
but can you make it?
I think I could.
Okay.
Uh,
So who would like to go?
I'll go. I'd like to go.
Okay.
I mean, I'll flip with you if you want.
No, I'm
Your
just.
iron fist.
Iron Fist, okay.
I've gotten, I mean, I know we continue to hear from residents, and you probably hear from residents as well. I've heard actually a lot from, I guess, kind of an heard group before that, people who are not excited about the,
Yeah, but we are not at that
I-
stage.
just-
We had,
okay,
I want to
I'm just
make sure
telling
we
you.
are.
Okay.
Yeah, I know.
Sharon?
9 o'clock, right?
9
On
o'clock.
the 9th.
Yep.
Good.
Very good. Okay. And well, that's new business. That was the only other old business. I can't think of anything else. There was something when I'm blanking out, but it's okay. Bi-weekly calendar.
Oh, the place falls apart when I go away. We have
All
a
right.
meeting on Monday at 8 o'clock in Plainville.
8 o'clock?
8 o'clock.
8 o'clock.
Should we all go over together?
I'd be happy to drive
Good
anybody
idea.
that wants to go with me.
I'll go with you.
So, oh yeah, I was gonna put that in new business, so that's good. We should,
So you want to meet here at 7:30?
yeah. Why do I have,
I know.
hello?
It's the second floor.
Meet at 7:30?
Yeah, we're meeting with Senator Brown at like 7:55.
Yeah, over
Oh.
there.
Let's make it 7:15 then, in case we get
7:15.
lost.
How about 7:30?
7:30's fine.
It's right next door to Rob's old house, so we
It's
shouldn't get
right up
lost.
the street. I was actually going to take my own vehicle because I'd probably stop in and visit my relatives.
Okay. Well, I'll ride with
Kill
you.
two birds with one stone.
I'll ride with you. I don't know his relatives, so I'll go with
I
you
don't
guys.
know.
You don't want to come.
Oh, okay.
We weren't going to come to your relatives.
Thank you.
To finish the
Okay.
sentence.
It's still the old town hall.
So the new business, as far as that meeting on Monday, I was trying to reach Rob Rose. I didn't get any. I wanted the number or something to just talk to him before the meeting. Just so that,
I left a message with, and I talked to Joe a couple times and told him that you were interested in talking to him, and he said he would pass along that information.
well, do you have? Is he also an unlisted board of members?
I didn't
I don't
try
think
and
so.
I didn't try and Google his name to look it up. I didn't look.
Okay. Well, I just want to be clear that we are clear in our minds about what we want to get out of that meeting. I know we haven't spent a lot of time talking about that.
You did have a email exchange with Joe, I thought. So,
Yes, I sent it, but I didn't hear, unless he sent something back.
no, I didn't see a
I didn't
response.
see a response. But the objective of that meeting is for us to talk together about, opportunities and not just long-term, but also short-term. So, I think I encouraged them. I don't know if they were going to invite anybody from KP, but I think now they have, right?
They have.
And the school committee
Yep.
representation is going to be there from all the school committees, right?
Yeah. Well, at least Norfolk, I know.
Norfolk,
I mean,
yeah.
what, yeah,
And I think
Yeah.
Rentham also, right?
Good. I
all,
don't
the,
know.
all the local school committees know about it, and
Yeah.
I know Superintendent Robot knows
And I know
about it.
KP is going to come,
Yeah.
so.
Yeah.
And I don't know anything about what's going on with Tri-County, but that was the two big areas of discussion we had at our last budget, were KP and Tri-County, so.
I have a bit of new business.
Yeah.
We hear a lot complaining about how things work, and I think we need to sometimes hear how things work pretty well. And if I could, I'd like to read something to the folks
Sure.
at home. Mr. Hathaway, my name is Sean McGinnis. I should have actually not put his name in, I'm sorry. But I'm a resident on Boardman Street here in Norfolk. I'm writing to let you know about a recent interaction we had with the water department. On Sunday, September 22nd, a water main broke in our street in front of 100 Boardman Street. Jack knows this because I think I called him at about 8:30 or 10 or something like this. Where's my water? The crews from your water department worked straight through the night to restore water to our area. Unfortunately, when the water got turned back on, everyone received water except us due to routing of the piping underground. We knew this was to no fault of the work that was done the night before, but was due to an existing problem from a long time ago. When I called the water department to speak to someone about it at 7 the next morning, the phone was answered by a very nice woman who said that she would interrupt the debriefing meeting and have someone get right back to us. Within 5 minutes, we received a call back by the water department saying they were coming right out. What was amazing was that they could have said, we're out all night, we'll be out later to fix it, or sorry that we have no one to fix it right now. The person on the other line apologized and said they'd be right out, and they were. Within 15 minutes, they were on site troubleshooting and temporarily returning water pressure to our house. Both gentlemen that came out were fantastic and worked very hard to resolve our issue. They let us know the issue, gave us a timeline to fix it, and temporarily restored water to our home. Over the next few days, the same gentleman kept us abreast of the situation, made sure that everything was okay.
Slowly. You don't have to rush.
On Monday of this week, the water department restored the water to our home and returned everything to normal. I cannot say enough how pleased I was with everyone that we spoke with and everyone that worked on this issue. Each employee went out of their way to help and make sure that we had the most detailed information. At no time did we ever feel put out or upset with what was going on. I want to thank you and the water department for all their hard work and outstanding customer service. And that's, first of all, it's really nice that he would write in and say that, but I think all too often we're really quick to point out what went wrong, and we should when something went right.
I think you make a very good point. We get letters from time to time for public safety officials, especially when it involves an ambulance and fire. Sometimes we'll get them for the police, but we rarely get things for the DPW. And I think this is really, I'm really glad you read this out.
Thank you. I didn't want to take your time, but I thought it was important.
No?
He called me the day after or the next day and just said it was nice. They took what was a negative, and turned it into a positive just through their customer service and keeping them updated. So it was, he said they actually ran a garden hose between the houses and
And the E911, the reverse 911 worked in that case when the residents were told that night what was going on. It was, I think all around, everything worked.
Maybe he could post this and sign SM or something like that.
On Norfolk Net.
Well, I didn't say where, but. Okay, any other new business?
No.
Acceptance of minutes?
Oh, do you want to give an update of last night's meeting?
Oh, yeah, sorry, I thought you were going to do it. Yes, do you want me to do it?
Happy to.
Go-
It was the chairman's meeting, and you did so well with it. We had meeting of the land use chairs, as well as the, we had zoning board, planning board, board of health, community preservation. We had Ramesh there and myself. I got them all. We had a very good discussion, and this was inspired from a couple different places, but really most recently from that library meeting we had with the developers. And so Ramesh drove the agenda very well, and what we had, we talked about stormwater, and for a good chunk of the meeting. And I think we finally,
My condolences.
we made some good progress, and we set some action item, a deadline. We've got
Tom Burke.
Tom Burke assigned to that one, and I think, the Board of Health made some preliminary suggestions as to how we can streamline this. We had a couple different discussions about how to implement this, but obviously then we passed it on to Tom to come back to the chairmans in a couple of months and improve that.
We put a date on it, December 1st. And actually, they are willing to think about it pretty creatively. They were, all of them were, and Tom was very good, and so was, Tom's, both the Toms.
Yeah, Tom Gilbert, Tom Burke.
And David Lutz was, his conservation is kind of secondary in this process, but they also all pitched in very well. And they're also going to look at the regs.
Good.
And, bring them together. That we gave that, I don't know, more 90 days, right? That was a little extra
That was
time
90
on that
days,
action.
that was January 1st. And we also talked about earth removal, a follow-up to the library conversation. There was a general consensus among the people there that that really needed to be moved into the planning board process.
Site plan process.
Part of the site plan. There's a question now whether or not it'll be a bylaw or just part of their site plan review. So that, I actually took that one, and we've got a February 1st.
Yeah, we said because that's what by this February 1st, we'll be doing the Springtown meeting warrant. So we'll have a new bylaw, which would essentially, try to streamline some of the elements and then also make the authority of granting this earth removal permit to the planning board. Move it away from the Board of Selectmen.
I think we're all in agreement on that.
Yeah.
And then the third big item we talked about was inspection fees, and Ramesh and I talked about how we're reviewing the water fees as part of the rate study. We'll be doing that over the next couple of months. They also talked about, I think the planning board already looked at some of theirs. They're going to send me their analysis. The Board of Health, Concom hadn't really done it yet, but they're going to put together some information. And Board of Health had already done some comparison as well. So we're going to put those all together in one big binder, so that we can look at how we compare to some other towns. There was some discussion about how I think the planning board really, in their study, they found that different boards have different fees, but they're with different spins on each one, so it's hard to do an apples-to-apples comparison. But nobody found out in their research that we were way out of line. So, the good thing is now I'll have some data, so that if somebody does come talk to me, I can show them our data, and if they want to present some conflicting data, that would be, now we can actually have a solid conversation.
So, that took most of the hour, and we had some other open items. We decided to meet again. The rest of we didn't cover all the items that had come up, so we said we'll meet again. We picked a date in December, rather than, wait a whole quarter. And we suggested that the next meeting, again, it would be only the land use board chairs. And then after that, on a regular basis. We'll try to expand it so that we have all the chairs, because the objective of these quarterly meetings is to have more communication and dialogue, and also areas which cross, multiple boards, we can help, facilitate and bring them together. So I thought it was very good, and my read of everybody's, the comments and the body language, everybody was actually pretty pleased that we did this. And they were, I thought really I really thought the planning board and, the Board of Health and the Concom and ZB, everybody was very open, which
Very
I
good
thought was
discussion.
very good.
I had conversations with two of the chairs that were at that meeting on different topics today, and both were very complimentary of the meeting last night.
Oh, yeah, okay.
I had
Well,
a similar conversation with another chair, I believe, probably when you didn't talk to him.
They already knew everything.
We're checking in on you.
I can see that. I can see that.
Spent my afternoon with Mr. Gilbert, so it's probably neither of you talked to him.
That's right.
That's true.
The school building committee that you lynched me with, for lack of a better word, that's moving forward. We've sent out the RFS for the design, the owner's project manager, and then we held a informational session that was required for anybody that was going to bid on the project. We had 10 people show up for that, sent 10 different firms. Now their bids are due back on, I think it's the 16th of October. Once we get the project manager on, we've already started working on the request for, it's not a request for services, but the request for, I can't think of, the next bid proposal that'll go out for the designer services.
What's the timeline with BS, whatever they're calling themselves these days?
MSBA.
MSBA. What's their timeline for telling us go, no go?
They're still a go until the next step is to get the project manager on, which they have to approve, and then the design and then have the feasibility study done. However long it takes us to do that, and the building committee is very aggressive. It's sometime this spring to have that done.
Mhm.
That would be then presented to the SBA, and then it depends on how long it takes them to turn that around. That'll be the go, no go, or
Okay.
remodel, add
And then
on.
it comes back to us. Then
The
we
town
dec-
meeting.
Then we decide, town meeting, the voters, yeah.
So it'll be, my guess is it'll be late spring before we get that engineering done.
Yep. So you're looking at fall '09 town meeting or spring '10?
To ask for money.
Yeah. If everything goes along
Yeah.
perfectly.
That would be my best guess, yes.
I think it'll be the spring.
Yeah.
A little bit familiar with that process. I think they'll do well to have it by the spring of the following, 2 springs, if you will.
Spring '10 then.
Okay, anything else?
Sir.
Acceptance of minutes? We,
You all right with them?
I have read the minutes. They are
All right.
appropriate.
Second. I move to accept the minutes of August 25th, 2008, and September 8th, 2008.
I second.
all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, if we have no other topics,
I just, one thing, I just want to
We
be
do.
sure that we all remember that we had an agreement that we were going to waive the 10% penalty on any delinquent bills in the October cycle for the water bills.
yeah,
Just want to be sure we,
Did we vote that?
We voted that, yeah,
I believe we
Yeah.
did.
All right.
Yeah.
Then
in our DPW
If you'd
session.
like us to vote it again, I think we have
once
consensus.
is enough. I just-
All right.
once is enough.
Well, we voted to turn it into the usual, the late
Correct.
penalties that the
Correct.
Same as
other.
the excise tax.
Yeah.
Correct,
Yeah.
the same as the
That's what
excise
we
tax.
said.
Correct. Yep.
Perfect. Then we'll do as you wish.
Thank you.
Or as we voted.
That's true.
All right, no other topics. Thank you for being with us. We are going to be meeting on the 6th of October with the Plainville and Rentham Boards of Selectmen, and I would certainly encourage folks to be there. And our next meeting is on the 20th of October, we are going to go shortly, the planning board, to do a joint appointment of a open planning board seat. Thank you, and good night.
We're gonna,
Sorry?
no,